guys, I'm your host, Snites Everything, and welcome to Civilizations, Empires, Countries, Some Leaders, and more. This is an episode where today we're going to be talking about Sumer, the very first civilization, and we're probably going to do it in chronological order. We might get off a little bit, but let's start. So, Sumer, right? The Sumerians were the most extraordinary people who ever lived on the face of the earth. They seem to come out from nowhere, right? And they single-handedly invented civilization. That is crazy. When most of the rest of the world was still living in the Stone Age, what's more, they did it. What's more, they did it. Didn't seem like much, but then they're the only civilization. They're just like, I'm just gonna build myself a civilization because I'm Sumer. Thousands of years before anything else. In regards to Sumerians, you will need to revise your concept of ancient in comparison to the ancient Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians. The Sumerian civilization was already ancient when it ended in 2004 BC. 20 centuries before Julius Caesar, 16 centuries before Socrates, and 7 centuries before Tutankhamun. It's King Tut, if you don't know. At the dawn of history, the Egyptians were the only people with a civilization comparable to that of the Sumerians, although the Sumerians' civilization was much older. There has been some debate on whether they created civilizations independently or if they cooperated with each other. The historic record seems to indicate that they built their civilizations independently. There is no mention of Egyptians in the Sumerian archives or vice versa, and there is no evidence that has a noticeable influence of one another, except for their propensity to build giant pyramids and ziggurats, like the ziggurat at Ur for the moon god. Although on a modern map they appear to be quite close, they seem to have been completely unaware of each other's existence. Back then, the world was a much larger place. What's so remarkable about the Sumerians' invention of civilization is they did it with so few natural resources. Like the Egyptians, the Sumerians did not have a lot of timber, so it's somewhat surprising the world's first civilization should rise where there isn't plenty of supplies of wood. It don't make sense. Which could be used for fuel, the construction of houses, and for many of the utilitarian items needed in daily life. Unlike the Egyptians, however, the Sumerians did not have a lot of stone. Imagine Egyptian civilization without its endless supply of stone. There wouldn't be any pyramids or any sphinx. Neither did the Sumerians have much mineral wealth. The only thing they had in abundance was mud. But with that mud, they built a great civilization. For with the mud, they built towering ziggurats, and on the mud, they invented writing. Examples of Sumerian technological inventions include the wheel, copper, bronze, the arch, sailboats, lunar calendars, saws, chisels, hammers, rivets, hoes, glue, swords and scabbards, harnesses, armor, musical instrument, chariots, the kiln, sun-dried and kiln-dried goods, the pottery reel, printing, plows, metal cook paths, and last but not least, beer. There are probably numerous other items the Sumerians invented for which they haven't received proper credit. Basically, anything that the Sumerians used, which has not been invented in the Stone Age, they had invented for themselves. The Sumerian archives in mathematics are particularly impressive considering the fact that they used the cumbersome sexagesimal number system based on the number 60 rather than simple decimal systems, base 10, that we use today, Sumerian mathematics is why we still divide a circle into 360 degrees. The above tablet from Shumpering is dated in the 27th century BC. It is the oldest known mathematic text. It's a table of computations showing the area of 6 rectangles where the length is 60 times greater than the width. The tablet didn't have a practical purpose. It's an example of mathematicians for its own sake. Mathematics. The necessity of having the eradicated large tracts of non-arable land seems to be what first compelled the Sumerians to invent the modern society. This required a division of labor under the direction of a central authority, or a government. It also required a means to pay for their projects, like donation of grain, sheep, cattle, dry goods, etc., and a method to record these payments, which required the invention of writing. The land had to be allowed to different civilizations, the water rights managed, and the surplus food distributed to the people. Once a large labor force was mobilized, construction on a movement scale soon followed, along with manufacturing of the other necessaries of civilization, like tools, clothes, weapons, luxurious goods, artists' work, and the like. The earliest administrative system was central at the temples, each ruled by a high priest, later with the city-states becoming more powerful and competitive. The government was controlled by a king, Lugal meaning man great, that's what they would call it, Lugal, who could also command large armies. Sumerian civilization in the fertilization region of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates River in the 5th millennium BC. Mesopotamia is a Greek name meaning between the rivers, if you didn't notice. Because the Sumerians seem to have appeared so suddenly to the scene and began in their language is unrelated to the other language of the region. It was originally believed that they were foreign invaders who subjected the indigenous people already living. This, however, seemed unlikely. It was very difficult to impose the language of a native people, and it's doubtful that the Sumerians could have lasted for thousands of years. Though every kind of vicissitude, if they had forced the civilization of unknown people, the Sumerians were probably the first nomadic hunters that ventured into the fertile lands, who later decided to settle there and become farmers. No one knows where they came from. Theories range from India, Caucasia, Hungary, Africa, Turkey, Turkestan, Tibet. You name it. Man. It could have come from New York. It's like, hey, I'm walking here. Well, I'm building a ziggurat here. After years of academic debates, no definite conclusion has been reached. However, it seems the Sumerians were distant from the Semitic neighbors they surrounded them, the Akkadians, Elamites, Iranians, Gutians, and Hamizi. We are probably going to talk about them in later episodes. It's highly impossible that the Sumerians could be ethnical, the same as their neighbors, and yet speak a language that is completely different. No one was their language. Not only was their language different, but their statues and portraits suggested the Sumerians were Caucasian, who originated from the area of the Caspian Sea. The Semnites, on the other hand, originated from the Arabian Peninsula. Remarkably, the Sumerians were later Remarkably, the Sumerians were later to maintain their ethno-cultural identity during the 2 centuries of Akkadian domain. After they were conquered by Sargon Great during the time, if it would have been so easy for the Sumerians to be assimilated, to blend back in. if they were like their neighbors. Instead, they regained their independence and became the Neo-Sumerian Revival, the ultimate expression of Sumerian civilization. Wait. So, I think we're probably going to talk about the Sumerian city-states or something, or like the Neo-Sumerian stuff. So that means we're done. And good day. Subscribe if you like. And like if you want. Good day then.